Hello, and welcome to another Cloud Podcast, a podcast designed to bring you stories from the smartest minds in IT, operations, and business, and learn how they're using cloud technology to improve business and the customer experience. All right, well, welcome to another Cloud Podcast. We are excited today to have Allastair Meffen on the show. He is the VP of Customer Experience over at Definitive Health. Allastair, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to a good talk today.
Yeah, well, I hear from you specifically that there's been some snow in the spring up there in the Northeast in Boston. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got about 2 inches on the ground here at my house, and then further up north, I guess the mountains are getting some decent snow. So there might be some spring skiing for those people who actually enjoy that sort of thing.
Yeah, just when you think things are starting to lighten up, it's always funny. It just like pulls it right back from you. So, well, we hope
New England weather. So.
Sunny, shiny weekend. It is Friday for us recording today, so we're all looking forward to the weekend. Everyone's happy. Artie, good to have you back. Good to have you on. Good to see you.
Yeah, Alex, thanks for having me on another episode. Looking forward to the conversation today. Customer experience has kind of been the theme in the last couple of episodes. So looking forward to getting another viewpoint and then also drilling a little bit more into some details.
Absolutely. So Allastair, let's just start super high level. Why don't you give everyone just a quick background about how you got into customer experience? Typically it's not a college degree that you can just go out and get. It usually comes from, I came from here, I came from there, and I worked my way and it just happened to fall into customer experience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that journey to how you ended up the VP of?
Yeah. So I started off as a sales engineer, loved being in front of customers, had a great rep that I worked with. And, we had a great time out on the road. But, my wife ended up getting pregnant, so I had to move back in the house. I couldn't be that road warrior anymore, and moved into support, which was a fairly straightforward. Having been a sales engineer, it wasn't too hard to move into support. And so I spent about 4 years. And as I was working with some customers and we were looking at some data at my previous company, we started to realize that we were seeing our renewal rates start to dip. And we started to do some analytics on where that dip was happening. And we realized it was actually in our longer term customers who had been with us 3-4 years. Which is surprising. Usually your longer tenured customers are fairly easy to renew and there's not a problem there. And a lot of those customers I knew personally because I actually had sold the deals and had done their implementation. So we started up a customer, back then we called it customer advocacy. Which is now of course taken on a whole different meaning in today's tech world.
Yeah.
And so we started up the customer advocacy team, which eventually evolved into customer success, and had the pleasure of being promoted up in that team to manage the CS team, and then was looking for my next opportunity, and I was able to land at Definitive. And customer experience has been, now that I'm here, I don't ever want to leave. I think everybody should work in customer experience, customer success, because you do get a bit of everything, right? So super fun, and really, really enjoyed it now, helping build out the team at Definitive.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit more about Definitive. What do you guys do? What are the channels that you support across? Just tell us a little bit more about the support structure and the types of conversations that your team is having.
Yeah, absolutely. So Definitive Healthcare is a data and analytics platform specifically for folks that are selling into healthcare. So we work with big pharma all the way to somebody like Smuckers, right? So anybody that's selling anything or anybody into healthcare, we work with them, staffing agencies, et cetera. And so, my team is really there to deliver the value that our customers are trying to get from Definitive. We have six teams that fall under customer experience. The customer success team is the largest. And then we have a support, training, operations, integrations, and a small onboarding team. And we're communicating with our customers on every channel. We're communicating through email, we're communicating through, obviously, over the phone. We have some messaging going on, and we're actually starting to explore potentially live chat. So it's sort of, we're figuring out where do we need to meet our customers in their journey. We've just formed in the past, what are we now, 8 months, we've started a digital CSM team, which is really focused on in-app engagement and meeting the customer within the platform. So we're trying to figure out where do we need to talk to our customers, because ultimately that will lead to more success.
How has, so you came from the technology world as a sales engineer, you're working now for Definitive Health, which is like data analytics, very technical. How is that technical background that you have translated into success just as a leader and as a running customer experience?
Yeah, so I think the technical background has helped me be able to dig in on customer use cases. I think when you have a technical background, you truly need to dive very deep with your customers so that you understand how they plan to leverage your technology. And the same is true in data. If you don't have that ability to pull out that specific use case or that specific outcome that customer is pushing for, you're not going to get them to succeed, and that customer is never going to see the value. And so as a leader, helping my team understand that framework and that process has been very successful. We focus on what are their goals, what are the plans to get to those goals, and then where do they see the risks along the way. And ultimately, a customer experience, you're there to help knock down those risks, right? How do I help them either get rid of the roadblock or mitigate it so that they can ultimately reach that desired outcome?
And in the previous podcast, we were talking to someone a little bit more about KPIs and voice of the customer and collection of data. And there's really two worlds. It's passive data, which is speech analytics, sentiment analysis, understanding where they are in their journey, and then how they interact with you, or if they do or don't interact. And then there's the more direct, which is literally sending surveys, post-contact surveys like CSAT or MSAT, depending on what you call it. Also, maybe like NPS surveys. So how are you guys collecting data? Are you doing both? Are you doing one more than the other? How is your
everything
program
that you
set up?
Everything that you just described. So we, we're deep into our usage analytics. And we leverage Turn Zero as our customer success platform, and we feed them feed that platform quite a bit of our usage data so that we understand the health of the customer. We're really driven by that usage, and we're looking at support tickets, all of that passive data that you were talking about, and then we're doing CSAT, we're doing NPS. We're starting to look at customer effort score, or CES. We haven't introduced that yet, but it's something we're looking at doing. We're trying to, the big thing, right? Customers living in this virtual world, you're constantly being inundated with things, and we don't want to overstimulate them or over survey them. So trying to find that right balance is key.
Yeah, absolutely. And drilling into customer effort score, because that's a pretty advanced way to gauge how your customers are doing health-wise. What are you guys? I know you're kind of starting into that phase, but how are you guys planning? Do you have any tips and tricks to anyone who's listening, or maybe you're not there yet and you want some tips and tricks? What are your thoughts around that?
Tips. I'd definitely be looking for tips and tricks for sure.
Yeah.
The way we're thinking about it right now, we just revamped our onboarding. process. So we're the first 90 days of the customer's life with us, and we're looking at implementing CES at the end of that 90 days as a look back, and then potentially around the renewal time, around the billing time, just to understand how that's working. But would love to understand from other folks, are they using CES instead of CSAT? Because I know some companies have replaced with CES, so that would be an interesting tidbit if you've got anybody out there.
Yeah, and for those on the podcast who are listening who don't know what that score is, it's customer effort score, which is how hard was it for you to get your issue resolved, or how hard was it for you to go through an implementation process, something like that. And the scales can be all over the place. It can be like 0 to 5 or 1 to 10. And usually what you want to do is you want to separate the tops. If it's out of 10, like the 9s and 10s, those are good. Everything else is a little bit passive, and then below 5 is detractor or not as great. So it's good to see that you guys are starting to do that, and I think that's where everyone's really going. They're going a little bit farther away from the CSAT, which is just the how was the conversation, did we solve your problem, into the how hard was it for your problem to be solved. So that's a great tidbit there.
Yeah, for sure.
How is closing that loop, right? The customer journey loop. We talked earlier about moving from sales to onboarding, and that's a big piece of the customer effort score, right? How have you created that path for the customer? How does that look as far as implementing a process for that?
Yeah, good question. So this is probably the most important handoff that you'll ever do with a customer, is making sure that you're transitioning the trust that sales rep has built with that customer to the customer success manager and the account executive, if that's how you're handling post sale. And we just recently rolled out our brand new handoff process. We do it through Salesforce. The sales rep will fill out that document once the sale has moved into procurement. They're required to fill out a document that outlines, what are the challenges that this customer is facing. Why did they buy? Why are they buying Definitive? And then what ultimately is their desired outcome, right? To steal a little bit from Lincoln Murphy, right? So, we want to make sure that we understand that information. Then we have a kickoff call. So we have a pre-call with the sales rep to make sure we're all in alignment on those desired outcomes. And then we have a kickoff call with the customer where literally you're just spending the time reaffirming and digging again. You're doing more discovery to just make sure that you've got complete alignment. Once you have that alignment, the rest of their life cycle becomes easy, right? You can bring it up. Yeah. You can show the status of where you are against those outcomes. And if you're on schedule, everything's great. But if you're behind, it's on you and the customer. There has to be accountability on both sides, right, as well. So that's why we make sure to affirm them on that kickoff call so we're holding them accountable to that. And then the next time we have the call, if something's changed, that's fine. We can readjust, but the customer knows that, we now have to take some time to build up to that.
Yeah, it's definitely a delicate situation, right? Like this is the beginning of a relationship. It's like the honeymoon phase. And you don't want that honeymoon to go south and have this bad experience and they just want to cancel or just, you don't want any big roadblocks in the way of that happening. So it's very important. What's interesting, so you've been at Definitive for about 4 years now, which is like the perfect time to when you start, implement these new measures, implement these new processes. And now you're kind of coming out of these, some big probably shifts in either technology or processes. What would you say has been the journey? It's just far from when you started to where you're at now. What are some of the big wins that you'd say you accomplished over these last 4 years?
Yeah, so I think the biggest win, and I credit the team, I just sort of pointed them in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I spent the first 90 days at Definitive just understanding where, what the bigger issues were from the team's perspective. And to a person, it was all about their onboarding, right? They really felt like they'd been thrown into the deep end of the pool, and they were expected to swim with a 50-pound weight tied to their leg. And so I gave them the opportunity to say, okay, build the onboarding that you would have wanted to go through. And the team took it. It took them, 6-7 months to build out that program. And we've since evolved it. I think we're in our 4th or 5th iteration now since I started, but that has been a huge win. Because if the faster that you can ramp your employees, the better they are going to be for your customers and preparing them for their everyday. So I think that's probably in my opinion, our biggest win. We've also made, as you said, the technology evolution has been huge. So when I started at Definitive, we were using Microsoft Access as our CRM. We were using Outlook for our support calls. We had a distribution list that literally went to everybody on the team, and we had to sort of figure out who got the email first. And then, so since then, we've evolved. The first technology that I purchased was Zendesk. We needed to get a ticketing system in place to start that, and a help center. We needed to take all that knowledge our CSMs had and put it somewhere so that we could find it later. So that was our first. And then we got Salesforce, thank God. And then Churn Zero has really been the next major one. So we've spent the past 1.5 years building out our tech stack, or building out the technology on Churn Zero, and it's been huge. Yuman and Abby and our CSM Chase over there have been fantastic and really helped us bring together our vision within the platform. So now that which is why we were able to do our digital CSM team. Without Churn Zero, the digital CSM team doesn't really have a good way to communicate to our customers at this point.
Let's talk a little bit about those contacts. Let's drill into that. So are you guys mainly inbound, or is it outbound, or is it scheduled based where you're scheduling appointments and times to get them through the 60-day onboarding process? Tell us a little bit about how your customers and employees communicate and engage with each other.
Yeah, so it's both. So we have our inbound support team. They're handling both the phone and the email, and we do have our CSMs are handling some of that. But the majority of our stuff is scheduled, right? So we work with our customers to get trainings or check-ins or business reviews scheduled on the calendar at regular intervals. We strive for a 45 and a 90-day review within the first 90 days. And we have a couple of trainings within that first time period as well. And then business reviews roughly every quarter. That's what we look to do. But as everybody knows who's listening to the podcast, not all customers want to meet you that often, right? So it's making sure that you understand what their expectations are as well. So and then the CSMs are leveraging Churn Zero, so they know which customers are red, which ones are green and yellow, right? Mm-hmm. And figuring out, those customers that are red, that are unresponsive, what do we need to do? Do we, is it a hit them every day sort of thing? Is it escalate up to, myself or our VP of account management to get on the phone with that customer? But a lot of strategizing there once you get into the unresponsive category.
Yeah. I used to work for a company, software as a service, and we had a onboarding implementation team. It's about 30 to 45 days, depending on how big of the project of an implementation. And same style where we would do outbound scheduling, and after an appointment or a scheduled time, then there would be assigned homework, and you couldn't really go to the next session until the homework was completed. And we found that there are some people who just loved it and thrived through it and just went through the process super fast. And those were the majority of the customers. But then there's 15 to 20% at any given time where one, they didn't like it because it's too much of a school type environment. They would drop out after 1 or 2 meetings, or they wouldn't do their homework, or they wouldn't show up to the 3rd meeting because they didn't do their homework from meeting number 2, and they felt embarrassed, or they felt like it was potentially a waste of time for the company to jump on the call. So lots of KPIs and metrics that you can collect, and some of them are not necessarily like binary. They're very like subjective during that process. How are you guys? Is it an agent or an employee on your side who's trying to project manage and then scoring the customer's health in that way? Like how do you collect that information through a process that complicated?
Yeah, so we're our churn, our health score, churn score is based on we have 5 things. The 3 main are based around usage. So how often are they in the platform? How much are they in the platform? And then how many licenses are active, right? So if you've got 5 licenses and only 1 user is in there, there's a good chance there's something else going on, and they should definitely have a lower health score. We also do look at, separately, we're looking at the along the journey, we can actually track their status, whether they're on track or whether they're behind. And that's one of the levers that we can pull as well. So for instance, if they haven't done their initial training within the first 10 days of becoming a customer, that sends up a red flag, right, to the CSM. And then if it continues, it'll send it up to the manager so that we can collect that data. So it's sort of subjective, but it's a pretty good indicator as to how well engaged that customer is with your company, if they're willing to go through that training or have those check-in calls with you. So we leverage all of that data to determine their health and whether they're on a good track or not.
You mentioned someone's name earlier, Lincoln Murphy, and I know that wrote a book. And tell us a little bit about that book in itself, and how that's helped craft your customer experience at Definitive. And are there any other ones that you've really relied on to help give you a vision for where to take things?
Yeah, so Customer Success is the name of the book. It's written by the puppy acting up in the back. So that was written by Lincoln Murphy, and then Nick Maida and Dan Steinman, who are both from Gainsight, right? Nick Maida is the CEO of Gainsight. Yep. And it was really the first foray into understanding what customer success looked like, and really having people understand that having a proactive outlook on things was necessary for customers to be successful. I think intuitively we knew that, but we didn't act that way, right? We were a lot of reactive, waiting for the customers. Wow, he is really upset right now.
Hey, this is going to segue us into the next conversation about work from home. So
yeah, so I think that's really helped me have a really good perspective on moving my team in that direction, right? How do we stop waiting for customers to come to us with their problems, and let's go to them and meet them where they want to be met anyway.
Yeah. And I have to ask, what kind of dog? That dog sounds like he's a little bigger.
Ferocious.
So he's an English Mastiff. So he's just over a year.
So big dog.
Really big. Yeah. So he's about 140 pounds at the moment, and going up to probably 170, 180.
Holy cow.
Oh, wow. Whew.
Holy cow. That's a big one there. So, well, and I'm serious about the segue into work from home. So how is that? We talk a lot about digital transformation, the tech stack being in the cloud now. How was it when the pandemic hit and it was like, oh crap, we've all got to work from home? Like, how were you guys set up for that? Were you frantic with IT saying, how are we going to figure this out?
So we were a week away from testing work from home. So we had, as a management team, we knew we were sort of moving in that direction, but we were going to do everybody go work from home one day the following week. and Massachusetts shut down. And it was like, okay, we're all going to work from home. We're going to test this real time.
Yeah.
So our poor IT team they amazing, right? They went out to I think they went to Best Buy, Target, Walmart, and literally walked down the headphone aisle with like the arm on the shelf and just
like
dumped
pouring
it all in. Yeah. So like we've got people with these sweet Xbox headsets at home now because we just weren't set up for it, right?
Nice like Bose ones and like
yeah. So I have my Bose. I started off using my Bose Bluetooth headphones. So it was interesting to say the least. My kids, and then everybody has their kids, right? And what do you do? How are we all doing this school and everything else? My youngest son is autistic, and trying to do virtual school with him is just a nightmare. He doesn't want to do it. It's the worst thing in the world. He's perfectly happy to go to school. If he can go to school all the time, he'd do it.
Yeah.
So that was a huge challenge for my wife and I was just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And it's no wonder there were shortages on everything, starting with toilet paper first, but then electronics, you go to the shelves were just empty. And imagine all the companies similar to yours that were like, we need to go get the certain, new modems, new headsets, like whatever it is to get this work for chairs, right? How are people going to get set up? So absolutely a frantic pace for everybody for sure. But I really like the idea of like, leaning on others, like with the book, right? And seeing what others are doing, because it's a newer path, but it's not completely new to where you can't go out and find people to help consult with or to learn from peers in this industry, because it has grown so much over the past 10 years. Is there any shout outs, like just colleagues or peers that you've worked with that have, been an influence in helping you craft this?
Yeah. So, I think Jeff McClellan and Laura Carson really helped. Jeff was my first boss in customer advocacy. He and I sort of started the team together, and he's now over at IBM heading up one of their customer success teams. And Laura Carson, who she took over from Jeff when he moved on, and she really helped sort of shape the team and where we needed to go. And so without them, I probably, who knows where I would have gone. I know I would still be in customer success. Do I think I would be in the position I'm in now? Probably not.
Yeah.
So
there's absolutely a track when you see people that could help you get to where you need to go. How has that influenced your leadership style with your team members? It's grown, right, from about, I think you said around 20 up to 70 people. How has that influenced your leadership style and mentoring and bringing up those younger hustlers, right, that want to prove themselves?
So it's been great. My team, I had as you said, a group. Hold on one second. I just need to. There's a alarm going off in the background. Hold on.
No problem.
Sorry, 1 o'clock alarm on Alexa. Just keep going off and on. Sorry, Alex, can you just repeat the question? I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, it was around leadership and mentoring up the younger generation or the young hustlers that want to, and how just the leadership style and how you look at that towards your team. Yeah.
So I think, that's the most important part of a manager. If I'm not looking to train my successor and asking my managers to do the same, then I'm failing. I think that I love doing it. And that's what Jeff and Laura instilled in me as well. It's like your job is to not, you've got stuff that you need to do, but ultimately teaching your team how to do their job and do it well is the ultimate pleasure of being a leader. And I had a call earlier this morning with one of the CSMs on my team, and we're just talking about what it's like to be a CSM and where, how to think about your daily job and be organized. And, where do you find those little joys every day, right? This isn't an easy job. And you're dealing with, some of the worst issues, and you're going to deal with customers that are just really upset with you. And you have to be able to deal with that, but then move on to the next thing and find that little piece of joy every day. Because I love coming to work, and my team is what gets me coming to work every day. Because they keep me on my toes, no question. And I learn just as much from them as they do from me. So.
And let's talk a little bit about team structure, because a lot of the people listening, they may not have someone who has a customer experience, in their title, or customer success. How do you structure your team? How did it start? How has it evolved over time? And for someone who doesn't have someone who focuses on experience, how would they start, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start there. I think trying to justify a customer success team is not easy. I think in a SaaS world, understanding that keeping customers is less expensive than it is getting new ones, right? So if you can spend just a little bit more money on a customer success manager to help you retain that customer, their lifetime value with you is, who knows? You should absolutely go and do that math and figure out, if this customer stayed with you for 5 years, how much is that worth to your company, versus having to go get 5 new customers, one every year, to maintain that same revenue. You will always find in the end that retaining that customer is going to be way more economical and make you more money in the end. So I think that's where I would, that's how we position it and how we think about it. My team started off as 18, what we called account managers. They had anywhere from 120 to 150 accounts. They were completely reactive. They were doing everything. They were doing support. They were doing training. They were having to onboard. And really, to be an effective CSM, you need to have the time to be able to think strategically and think about what is the value that I'm trying to deliver to my customers, and what's the next thing, right? Looking at their own goals. If they're public, it's super easy. You can go listen to their quarterly readout, right, and be able to chart that. But watching the news is, important. So I started building out the team. We started with a support team first, so that we could take away those tickets from the team. We then built out a training team. So that team is now 4 strong. We added a small onboarding team. So our long tail customers, we put them through an onboarding, but then our support and training team is really who works with them after. And so that was a conscious decision. So we had to build out a couple of onboarding specialists, and then we do integrate with a couple of we integrate with Salesforce directly in their application, but then we've got ways to integrate with pretty much every CRM out there. So we had to build an integration team to take that away from the CSMs. Yep. And then finally, our last team was our operations team that we built out, and thank God we did that. That if you're not talking to your CEO about if you're at 10 plus CSMs and you're not talking to your CEO about a operations team, you need to go find it. So, I was fortunate. One of my senior CSMs was someone who decided that she liked customer success, but she didn't want to be customer facing anymore. And she really enjoyed the process end of things. So, Jenny came to me and said, I'd really love to do operations. That's where I want to be. And between her initiative and sort of my backing, she actually wrote her own job description. She built it out, and thank God she did. that team has been a lifesaver and really helped our team. So our total structure on my team, we've got 6 CSM teams that we've built out. 7, actually, I take that back, 7. And then our support, training, integration, and onboarding and operations.
Yeah, it's tough going from, everyone does everything to separated, and everyone wears maybe 1 or 2 hats out of the 10 that they used to. So managing that expectation and that change can sometimes be a leadership challenge versus it being more of a technical challenge. So I'm glad to hear that there's a success story that comes out of it, and you could have this career path for people to potentially write their own job description and carve out an area of space where they can own and grow.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I think smaller companies you get to wear those hats, and then you find one that you really liked. I had the same experience in Imprivata, so it's a fun feeling when you can do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked to several people now on the podcast where they have a plan in place to take CSMs or take people in the support center and give them opportunities to where, like, you're only going to be here for 18, 24 months. And then the goal is to move you up into other areas of the business. And people that start in support have a great perspective of the organization, of sales, of the technical aspect of the product, and just what customers are dealing with on a daily basis, so they can take that to other departments and really shine a light on certain things that if you just came in from the outside, it's harder to see. And so it sounds like the same thing for you. It's like you have these 6 different teams, and it's like, well, someone's kind of outgrowing that CSM role. They're getting burned out on taking calls from angry customers. It's okay. You've done it for 2 years. Let's move you up. Let's progress your career, which keeps people sticky, and that, eliminates the churn of your employees too.
Yep. Yeah, that's really important to be able to find that right path. Right. So we've been very fortunate. We're the team that people come to, which has been good. So we've taken in some of the ISRs have come to our team, and we've got our research team. But we've had folks, as you said, Alex, we've had CSMs who realized, what, I really enjoy being in the back end. I really love being in the data on a daily basis. So you know what, I'm going to go. I'd love to go work for the professional services team, but they're bringing the customer perspective to that team now, which it's huge for some. Most of that team doesn't interface with customers every day, but they now have somebody on their team who can tell them, "Hey, this is what it's actually like."
Yeah, exactly, and it's all reality, right? So your own reality, if you don't know it, and what it's like in other areas, it can be. It's eye-opening, when someone else can come in and say, well, actually, here's how we are doing things over here, and what the customers are dealing with in this sector for us. So one of the things we like to do, Allastair, as we kind of get closer to wrapping up, is we talk about our customer experience, right? What we've dealt with airlines or restaurants, or as a customer ourselves, and we don't focus on the bad, because that's easy. Everyone can focus on the bad customer experiences. So what we want to do is ask you, have you had in the last, say, year, I know it's been hard because people haven't been going out a lot or traveling much, but a really amazing customer experience that you've dealt with a certain brand? You can name them or not. Typically we like to name them because it's a good thing, but think of anything where you're like, wow, you were wowed by the experience and thought it made you think about your experience at Definitive.
Yeah, it's actually a really good question. We do spend a lot of time focusing on the bad when we're thinking of B2C. So I think probably the Amazon, we bought the Sunny Bike from Amazon, which is sort of like the Peloton. We didn't want to go pay for Peloton.
Yep.
So we were able to get the app, of course, for like $12 a month or whatever. But
yeah.
So we bought a Sunny Bike, and you can schedule to have in-home them come to your home now and put it in. And the gentleman who came, he was awesome. He was here for about half an hour putting the bike together and stepping me through, here are the things you can tweak. This is how you can take it apart. Yeah. And just super friendly and easy. So Amazon had adapted to, of course, Bezos, not a surprise, right? But adapting to the new world, and making sure that they had that service available to their customers. So
yeah, in the e-commerce world, you have to find that find a way to humanize it, right? Because it can be very 2-day shipping, 1-day shipping. It just comes and goes. But when there's a product that actually needs some support, it's great to partner up. And I actually have a great story. I'm going to post it on LinkedIn pretty soon, but it was when I bought new tires for my car. I go to a dealer, it was Tire Rack, find the great deal, better deals than you'll find at your local tire shop. And then at the end, you get to choose a service that will come out, a mobile service comes out, installs the tires on my car. I don't have to leave. I can keep working. The guy's out front. I can see it through my window and touch, just the process I was amazed, because I don't know if you've experienced this, but you go down to America's Tire or one of those tire shops and you sit there for 4 hours, or you have to have your wife or someone drop you off, pick you up. It's a complete hassle. And I can't stop talking about it because it was just so convenient, just right out front. I took a picture of it with my car up on jacks, and he had the whole balancing thing there. It was great. I loved it.
Check to see if they're up here in New England. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, so dealer or Tire Rack is, and they have these companies that they've partnered with all over the country.
Oh, okay. So they're sort of like franchised. That's
they
pretty
franchise
cool.
out, so you can choose which installer you want. I just went with the one with the better ratings, but and I wouldn't have known about it had my word of mouth, right? Had my friend who's a car guy say, yeah, just go order your tires on Tire Rack, and they'll have someone come out and install it. It's like brilliant.
That's amazing.
And the price was the same, maybe even a little cheaper than going out to the regular store. So already I let you jump in. I know I was on a rant there, but
yeah, no, we find that a lot of these great customer experience stories stem from as a service, helping us complete some sort of task that we would have had to do ourselves and making it easy, which is great, which is perfect. That's exactly what you guys do at Definitive Healthcare, as a service, software as a service. So it's really cool and brings it kind of full circle to how important it is, especially if you are listening to this podcast and you oversee a team that focuses on the service side of the house. It's super valuable to make sure that that's a good experience. So once again, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. It was a pleasure. We've had so much good tidbits of information. I'm going to go buy that book right away, The Customer Success by Lincoln Murphy. Yep. I'll even put it underneath the podcast on the website, just so that people have a link to it on Amazon. And Alex, I'll let you close out the show.
Yeah, no, you did it, Allastair. Great having you on. It was a pleasure. Next time we'll have to officially meet your dog and bring that guy over here and really see how that.
Yeah. Next time we'll have him on. So Artie and Alex, thank you for having me on. It's been a great day.
You got it. Well, that wraps up the show for today. Thanks for joining, and don't forget to join us next week as we bring another guest in to talk about the trends around cloud contact center and customer experience. Also, you can find us at adleradvisors.com, LinkedIn, or your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week on another Cloud Podcast.